Hi again, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on how to visualize sports results. We're super excited to have you all here, and hopefully you're also, looking forward to the Euros that are starting this week, and also the Olympic Games that are just about a month and a bit away. Let's just get started. Today I have with me Joseph, a very special colleague of mine who is part of the enablement team, and he's a data visualization specialist. Today he's gonna lead you through a lot of beautiful, cool, stunning Flourish examples on how to create charts with football data and a couple of data visualization tips and tricks. And my name is Simona. I am part of the marketing team here at Flourish, and I am a content specialist. Today, I'm going to talk you through some data visualizations about the Olympic Games. And just a couple of housekeeping kind of tips before we get started. If you have any questions surrounding the webinars and what are we demoing today, just because today's session is going to be quite practical, we're going to have two live demos on how to create different charts with Flourish. So if you have any questions, if something's not necessarily clear, please ask them through the chat, and either Joseph and I will be able to reply. And if you're interested in more of those events that we're doing, please feel free to either go to our webinar page on the website or sign up to get email notifications. We're going to be sharing these at the end of the webinar. And just a little bit of an agenda on what to expect. So we're going to get started with the Euro 2024 and how to bring kind of like your Euro and football data visualization to football data to life. We're going to see a lot of examples made with Flourish, as well as a live demo of the sports template, which some of you might not actually be aware of its existence in the first place. Then we're going to move on to the Olympic Games. We're going to again see quite a few examples and a live demo of our table template. And we're going to finish with some data visualization ideas to keep in mind for your personal sports coverage and quick ways to improve your charts. So I'm going to hand over to Joseph straight away, and I hope you enjoyed today's session.
Hi, welcome. Okay, so I'm going to take you through a few sports visualizations you can use for Euro 2024. However, these visualizations are also appropriate for using for other sports such as basketball or American football, or lots of sports really. Okay, so these are the four key templates that we're going to start with. First, we've got the tournament chart here. Tournament chart is super easy to use. It's interactive. So for example, if I click on Italy here, I can see where they've gone from and to. It works great on mobiles. In fact, it will resize for mobiles. The other thing is you can add a background to it. So you can see here, we've got this turquoise color. You could add any background of your choice, maybe a player image. This actually works with all Flourish charts and is particularly good for football charts, as I often think they work well with background images. Next, we've got line and bar charts. In this example, we've got a filter at the top for goals and assists. And we've also got a grid of charts here. So we've got 4 charts in one. Again, this will resize for mobiles. Next, we've got scatter plots. So scatter plots are great if you really want to dig deep into some of the sports data you've got. One of the nice things you can do with Flourish is add these annotations, and these really make the difference from quite a boring scatter chart that you might be quite difficult for your readers to understand, to really being able to show off the insights and the story you want to tell. And we'll talk a bit about that later. And then finally, we've got the sports template. And I'm going to show you around this now. Okay. So this is the page that you get to when you open Flourish. And if you want to start a new visualization, you can click this button here. This is our template chooser. There's loads of options for charts. To get to the sports one, we just need to scroll down a little bit. That's all the maps ones, and it's here. So you can see we've got lots of starting points here. We've got line up with images, with flags. You can create a basketball shot chart. You can do a tactics board where you can drag players around. But I'm going to pick this one, line up with numbers. One of the good things about Flourish blueprints is that it's a really good way to see how charts work in Flourish. So you can see here, this is basically a chart which is ready to go. And if I look at the data tab, I can see how it's made. So I need data in this format. So here I've got a list of the players. These are the England players, and then the squad numbers. And then I tell Flourish which columns to use for what by putting an A here, which is for the names, and then putting a B here for the squad numbers. You don't need the squad numbers, so if I just get rid of this, you can see in this preview window, they've just disappeared and we've just got the circles, which is fine. You could also color by if you would like them all to be different colors. Maybe if they were all from different teams, you could use this. And if you want to add your own data in, you can just paste here or you can write them in. So for example, Maguire is actually injured, so I'm going to replace this with Punk. Next, if I go to the preview tab, you can see what it looks like, and we can do lots of things to change the formatting. So first, if I go down here, we can change the color of the pitch. Maybe I want it black like this, or maybe just a slightly different green like this. You can also change the pitch markings. So at the minute we've got options for football, basketball, or tennis if you want to do a shot chart, or you could add your own custom SVG. And you can add whatever you like. I'm going to go back to football. Next thing you can do is you can change the pitch orientation. So we could make the pitch full size like this, or we could turn it on its side like this. And then finally, thinking about colors, if you want to change the color of these dots, we can go to dots and we've got lots of options here. For example, border size and the size of the dots here. You can change the color here in the palette. So let's do that. Edit color palette. And then I could maybe change it to this dark red, or I could change it in this color box, maybe to a blue color like that. Not sure about that. I think I'll stay with the red. Next, let's have a look at how you could change the formation. So I go back to pitch, and we're on formation here. The first options you can try are the presets. So if I have a look at formations here, we've got a few different ones. I think this is a 4-3-3. Next, if you want a more custom formation, or maybe if you're doing it with a different sport, you can click on custom, and you can see here we've got these dashes and stars. So a star will mean that a player is there. A dash will mean there's a space here. For example, let's add a star here. So we've got 2 up front, and we'll get rid of the number 10. And you can see how this changes it. So this would be my chart ready to go. Let's just name it. We're just going to call it England team. However, there are some other things we can do with it. And this is really the magic of the sports template. So if I go to create story, we go into the Flourish story player. So here we can move things around and they will stay frozen wherever we leave them. For example, I can drag these players. So let's try let's try thinking about what England might look like if they have the ball. So maybe Shaw will move up, and maybe Dunk and Stones and Walker will move around, and then maybe Foden would be here. And if I wanted to export it just like this, I might want to get rid of this caption here, which is mostly used if you're going to have a few different slides. I can do that by going to this little cog here by slides, and then just go to caption none. And then this would be ready to export. There is another thing you can do with the story player, and I really like this. It uses some animations. So let's do that now. I'm going to delete this slide and just add it in again so we get back to the default. I can do this by going to the England team here. And then I'm going to duplicate it, but actually I'm just going to go back to this current slide first, and you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to change a couple of things about this. Firstly, I'm going to have a full pitch, and I'm going to have it on its side. And this is so we can really see how the tactics change in my animation. Next, I'm going to go to animation trail lines. I'm going to change the animation so that it's silky slow. I'm going to change it to 0.7 seconds. And I'm going to enable these trail lines and maybe make them white. And you'll see this in a second. So now if I go back to my story player, I might just need to refresh here. I can duplicate this slide. And then in the second one, I'm going to drag some players again. So again, I'm going to do what England looks like with the ball. So we're going to have Shaw going up. We're going to have Foden moving in, and then the defenders just going. So it's 3 at the back. And you can see that it animates between them. If I wanted to export this, I imagine I might want it on an autoplay so that it's almost just looping, almost like a GIF. Maybe it's in an article which has a few of these talking about how tactics change. I can do this by going to the cog, and I can click autoplay story, play on load, and loop. You can actually even add audio to this story. Let's export it. In fact, I've just missed one thing. We need to set the duration of the slide. By default, it's on 5 seconds, but that's going to be quite long for this one. So let's just put this on 2 seconds and this also on 2 seconds. Now we can export it. So publish to share and embed here. Publish. And then let's have a look at the preview page. There we go. We've got our nice animation. The other thing I want to show you is also an animation, but it uses quite a few slides to show a proper story. Let's go to it now. So here, if I just go back to slides, we've got a little story. We can have a look at it again by clicking this preview link. And the idea is the reader would go forwards and backwards in this slide player, reading these little captions, and then following the story. First, I've highlighted the Barcelona players, which I've done by using that color binding, which I talked about a minute ago. And then the other ones are all duplicated, just like the first example. And you can see I'm building up this little story. So if we go back, we can see that it's very similar to the first example I created, just with duplicated slides here. And then this one is a slightly different slide that I've also added. The other thing that you can do is, if you've got our premium plan, at a touch of one button, you can turn this into a scrolly, which I think is really fun. So now you could write text here if you wanted. You can write whatever you like. And if I just refresh this publication, so republish it, and then go back to it and refresh here, if I scroll down, it's now a scrolly, and it will animate as I scroll down. this visualization was inspired by TIFO, which is a video channel on YouTube. So it's very similar data to that one. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you is just how to add images to the players. So you can see here, we've got an image for each player. And then on this one, we've got a flag for each player, and they work in the same way. This is really good for a tournament like the Euros because you can do players of the week. Sometimes flags are easier to find than images, so I recommend using flags. And the way to add them is to add a column for images. And I could do that by going image, C here. And then you can upload a file from your computer by right-clicking and going upload file. These also can point to a URL, but mostly you're probably going to just want to upload the file. Great. Let's go back to our slides. So this is what we made, and you can now see it in our Canva deck. Next, I wanted to show you a few other examples of the football charts I like making. So this is a table. Simona's going to go over tables in more detail later, but I just wanted to show you some football examples because I use them a lot. So here we've actually got bars within our tables, which is easy to do, and I think work really well in this golden boot table. Next, we've got bars and also a heat map. And then finally, we've got a fixture list. And these flags are just emojis, so they're very easy to add. You can also add a search bar to the fixture list. So for example, I could search for England and it would show me all the England games, or I could search for a venue and it would show me all of those venue games. Next, we've got a classic bar chart race. These are great for world rankings, for leagues, even for the price of players. We've also got line chart races where you can also look at leagues, or you can look at how many goals a player scored over time. Next, we've got some cards. These are flippable. They're also filterable. We've got a whole squad here. You can also have them as a carousel. You can do almost anything you like with them. They take HTML and CSS. You can put pictures in them. You can put videos in them. You can put charts in them. Super easy to use. They're kind of the Swiss Army knife of Flourish. I really recommend having a go. And then finally, for these examples, we've got a timeline. So this is a great way of introducing a player. Maybe you could do this about Cristiano Ronaldo for the Euros to show his whole career over the Euros, or maybe a new manager you could introduce using our timeline. This again works great on mobile, and you can add background images to it like I've done here. And then here, we've got some examples from one of our Flourish premium users. This is from Transfer Market. I'd really recommend Transfer Market if you're looking for data to visualize. They've got loads of great examples. This is a bar chart example, and this is the line chart race, which I was talking about earlier, and you can see how the values have changed. You can also see how you can add background images to Flourish charts. And then the last part of these slides is our Flourish blog. So we've got a couple of blogs on football. I'd really recommend you having a look. I think there's 15 different charts on this blog. I like creating football charts, so I went a bit mad with creating them. And there's loads on the other one. There's loads of great examples to get you inspired at creating football charts, and also generally sports charts with Flourish, because a lot of the sports charts for other sports, basketball, baseball, American football, rugby, for example, are very similar actually to football charts. So there's lots of inspiration there. Great. Over to you, Simona.
when it comes to the Olympic Games, or as with any sport, sport event, sports in general, you know that there is a multitude of data that you can kind of like utilize and visualize in many, many different ways. Obviously, the Olympic Games are definitely not an exception in this case. And here you can see just a few of all the many crazy things that you can do with Flourish and Olympics data. You can do everything from a slope chart to a map showing the hosts of each Olympic Games. You can do Olympic medal visualizations, all sorts of stuff. And the best part is these visualizations are all available on our blog. Generally, our blog is the place where we share all these kind of beautiful, stunning examples that you can literally copy and create your own with your own branding, your own colors, etc. So I highly recommend taking a look at the Olympics blog post as well. But for the purposes of today's session, we're actually going to focus on 4 key templates that you might need in your toolkit. And the best news is that all these 4 templates are actually perfect for Flourish beginners. Starting with the table, this is our kind of unsung hero for today's demo when it comes to the Olympics. You're going to see how you can create a table in Flourish and what is the special thing about our tables in particular and why do we love them so much. Then you can, of course, create a pictogram, which basically uses customized icons to represent numerical values and are just generally sometimes a bit more fun and engaging to look at. You can create a cards visualization, which is what Joseph showcased just a second ago. And last but not least, you can actually create a quiz with Flourish, which is perfectly responsive, embeddable, and it just works very good for publications that don't necessarily reflect live sports coverage, but you really want to create content surrounding global sports events, etc. The cards and quiz in particular are just perfect for this because they are interactive content templates. They're not necessarily qualitative visualization types. But you're going to see all of these in more depth just now. Starting with the pictogram here, hopefully you see a bit better because like the other screen was a bit small. But the pictogram, or also called an isotype chart, is a very fun, great way to communicate data in a visually engaging way. So essentially, not only the colors kind of represent what are you visualizing with your data, but also the icons that you're using. And as you can see here, we've actually imported our own custom icon in the shape of a medal. So we can really make it clear that this is what this visualization actually shows. It shows gold, silver, and medal and bronze medals. But the template itself comes with maybe 20 or 30 icons that you can just choose from the template chooser. So you don't necessarily have to import your own icons if you don't want to. It's just an optional kind of like plus. When it comes to the cards template are, for me personally, the best way to actually showcase content in a very structured and organized way. And as you can see here, for example, you can visualize everything from team players to sports, any other kind of like metadata you might have. You can upload multimedia elements as well, such as images, video, audio files even, so they can kind of like play music or anything else. And as with any other Flourish template, the cards template also come with filters. So as you can see here, we have selected new sports. So you can see the new Olympic sports of 2024. By the way, keep these sports in mind because we're gonna test your knowledge with our quiz in just a second. I promise it's not hard. But also, apart from just new sports, for example, the user can also click and filter, basically display all the sports in the Olympic Games. So you see that it creates this kind of like a slideshow that you can basically browse through. And if you click, you can see more information, such as when was this specific discipline introduced first, and which is the dominant country that basically dominates the sport in question. As with anything, the cards template is super customizable when it comes to HTML and CSS, although this is, again, a very kind of optional feature. But one more thing I wanted to show you, and that's basically on our blog. Again, you can see an example that also uses sports metadata. In this case, we're using an article by The Guardian that shows the 20 best female players worldwide. So as you can see here, the cards template actually comes with this sort of animation and slideshow where you can like pause or just kind of swipe left and right to see players. And for example, this is really good to kind of introduce specific athletes, specific players in a team, and things like that. So as always, you can read more on our blog. So moving on to our table. Basically, the table is the best way to actually present raw data, and especially in cases where you need to provide precise values, they actually matter a lot, whether someone, such an athlete or a country in particular, has scored 39 or 38 medals. For example, this is quite important for the Olympic Games in particular. The table is probably the best example and the best way to visualize data in a very structured manner. The best part of our table, however, is that within the template itself, you can add those mini bar charts, which basically allow you to not only systematically present the raw data, but you can also create a little mini visualization. So people who kind of like just want to very quickly get interesting insights and spot specific trends, they can do this. Another thing is that the table, every column in our table is sortable. So for example, if I sort our example by total number of medals won, we can see that although the Russian Olympic Committee ranked fifth during the last Olympic Games, they've actually scored the third highest number of medals throughout the games. But looking at these mini bar charts here, you can see that their golden medals are a bit lower than other countries, for example. And we're going to use this same example for our live demo today. So I'm going to go straight into it in a second. Just before that, I am actually going to show you the last kind of key template that we selected today, which is the quiz. As you can see here, I have a quiz on the right-hand side, which says, which of the following is not an Olympic sport and is not going to be played in the Paris Olympic Games? And if you paid attention to the cards visualization, you might be able to answer this question. If you would like to give it a go in the chat, please do. Yep, someone says karate, and I think you're perfectly right. Actually, the karate as a sport was only featured in the 2020 Olympics and was not selected for the 2024 or the next Olympic Games. But interestingly enough, breaking, skateboarding, surfing are all Olympic sports for this year. So yeah, this is just a very basic example of our quiz and how it works. You can basically just provide information like in the form of text, add emojis, do all sorts of things, and provide custom kind of like end card combined with GIFs, images, etc. to personalize the experience a little bit more. As I said, the best part of this template in particular, and all of the templates that I've just showcased, by the way, is that they are very easy for data visualization beginners in the first place, because there's not heavy data wrangling involved in the whole process. You just kind of like have your data, put it in a template, and create a stunning piece of content. So let's see how the table template actually works. So first, I am going to go into the Flourish template chooser by clicking New Visualization, and I'm going to scroll a bit to the bottom, where we can see our table. We have multiple starting points, but I'm actually going to choose the default starting point here. So here, as with any template, we have default data for you to actually see how the template itself looks like and how your data should be structured. In the table template, actually, it doesn't necessarily matter how your data is structured because, whatever you see here, you basically see in the preview as well. With a small exception, obviously, the mini bar charts and the mini line charts, but that's actually an area chart, but we're going to see how you can create this from scratch in just a second. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my data tab, and here I'm going to clear the sheet. So we start from scratch. On a separate sheet, I have my data that showcases the number of medals won by each country during the last Olympic Games. So I'm just going to copy it from somewhere else, and I'm going to paste it. And as you can see, here is my data. If I go to the preview tab, you can already see that we have some information populated. Going very quickly to the data tab, you'll notice that the column bindings are also very easy to kind of like work around because we just have the table values. So if you want a column to be part of your table, you just bind it here, and that's everything. In addition, another thing that I wanted to showcase is that the table template actually supports emojis. So for example, if you want to kind of just make your chart a bit more engaging or kind of like get something visual in there, you can literally just type an emoji and the emoji is going to show up, and this is how it looks like. So that's very easy and straightforward. So now that we have our data here in place, I'm going to go to the preview editor. And the first thing that you might kind of come across with is that every single column that has numerical value has these decimals after each number. We obviously don't need that because we don't have kind of like these precise values, and they're not important at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the number formatting. And as you can see here, we have an option for decimal places. I'm going to switch back to 0. But as you can see, nothing really changes. And that's because I actually need to specify which columns I would like to format for this to work. In this case, I want every single column to remove the decimals. So I'm just going to put rank, gold, silver, bronze, and total. So once I do this, obviously, we now got rid of the decimal numbers. In addition, I think since we don't necessarily have very heavy data wrangling with the table template, most of the things that you can do with this visualization in question is customization, which is also the best part, like the most fun part, in my opinion. But here are just a couple of useful things that you might also find yourself needing at some point. Under the table cell styles, we have alignment, and we have different alignment for text and numbers. As you can see here, at the moment, all my numbers are aligned on the right-hand side of the columns. I don't like this though. I prefer them to be at the start or at the center, like regardless. No, maybe start is better. So that now things look just a little bit more straightforward, in my opinion. Another thing that you can do is, for example, you can add stripes. So if you want to kind of like have alternating stripes, you can do something like this, like a main color and a stripe color. So like you have alternating colors for greater visibility between different rows, etc. And you can have them like horizontal or vertical. But for the purposes of today's visualization, I don't actually need stripes. What I need is I need to color specific cells. So within the table template, you have two options. You can color cells based on categorical content or color cells based on a number. So how these two works is the following. So for categorical coloring, let's say that I want to kind of provide a visual clue and emphasize that the three most important columns in my table at the moment are gold, silver, and bronze. What I can do here is I can literally hover over this question mark, see what's the right syntax for this kind of like setting. So essentially provide a hex code of a color. So that's, for example, this, and write the name of my column. So you see, that's my color, that's my cell name, gold. I can do literally the same thing for silver as well. silver, and do the same from bronze. I'm just going to copy paste it from my notes. That's it. And now you see that we have gold, silver, and bronze colored by a category, because this is a category. If you want to do something different, so for example, as you can see here, we have 4 countries that have 10 gold medals. If you specify just the color, say yellow, and put the number 10, you see that every single instance of the number 10 in our table will be colored in yellow. If you would like to specify only specific 10 in a specific row, what else you can do is you can just go like this, just zooming a little bit more so you can see. And for example, here, this is the syntax I am following at the moment. You can do like yellow 10, and you can do, for example, row number 8. And you see now that in my row number 8, only one single 10 has been colored. And if you want a whole row to be colored, such as in my previous example, I wanted Great Britain to be colored. Let's say we're a British news organization. We want to highlight kind of like Great Britain for visibility. What you can do, for example, is you can do something like gray. For example, you can have an asterisk here and put row 5, for example. And this is how Great Britain got colored. Now, let's ignore the fact that you almost can't read anything at the moment in this row. I'm just going to show you something else in a second. So now let's get to actually the point of and the best feature of the table. We're going to go to the bar charts. So in order to create mini bar charts, what I would like to do is I would just copy my 3 main columns, the gold, silver, and the bronze, and I'm going to duplicate them. Why am I doing this? Is because I actually want both the values of the gold, silver, and bronze and my little mini bar charts. And in order to avoid any confusion between this set of numbers and this set of numbers, I'm just going to rename my columns. I'm going to put gold 2, silver 2, and bronze 2. And by heading down to the mini bar charts, you're going to see here that I have to specify which columns should be part of my bar chart. In my case, this is gold 2, silver 2, and bronze 2. And as you can see, this automatically created a mini bar chart. Now, the new column name doesn't suit to be a vote share anymore. That's a leftover from our default data. So I'm just going to keep it blank because I think it's pretty straightforward what we're visualizing. Once we color override it. The same goes with a vertical here. I'm going to change the bar type to a vertical because I think this is better for readability. And you can choose the padding and the width. So for example, you can do these. You can kind of like customize the padding between these visualizations. It's really up to you, and it's really up to how you prefer it. I'm going to keep it to 7. And similarly to what we've done with the color overrides up here for the cells, I'm going to literally do the same here. So what I'm going to put is I'm just going to copy and paste those colors. And I must not forget that these had a 2 here. Here it is. So this is how you create mini bar charts. In a very similar manner, you can create mini line charts if you have kind of like columns that represents change over time. In our case, we don't necessarily have this. This data set doesn't really work for a line chart, but this is kind of like a very similar structure of how to create a mini line. Last thing, here you can see that you also even have options for pop-ups. In addition, you can also choose an inline labels. So for example, here you can kind of like specify the values. So let's say that I didn't actually have these values displayed here in my cells. I could have just put the inline labels, and this is how you kind of like represent the specific values. But in my case, I like it clear, and I prefer to stick to none. And now to the last part. So here in the layout, in order to make our colors pop just a little bit more, what I'll do is I'm going to choose a background color, and I'm going to maybe make it almost black, not too black. And I'm going to go here to text color, and I'm going to switch everything to white. Now we have Great Britain slightly more highlighted. We have our beautiful gold, silver, and bronze color, and our text is white. The final thing I would like to just pay attention and like emphasize in for the table is the mobile styles. So if you're new to Flourish, you might have not noticed yet that you have different preview settings here on the top left. So for example, if I go on the left here and I preview at typical mobile width, you will see that my table currently looks like that. That's because in certain circumstances, it actually makes a lot of sense to have this. So for example, I'm going to very quickly show you here in our blueprint. If I go and switch to mobile width, you see that here I have a state, I have some information about the specific state, etc. I have my little bar chart and my little area chart. So in this case, kind of on mobile, it looks nice to have these different blocks. In our case, though, I'm not very convinced about that. So what am I going to do is I'm just gonna go to the mobile view settings, and instead of blocks, I'm gonna select table scroll bars. And as you can see here, we have a little mini version of our table from before, but with the exception that here you can specify fewer or more rows depending on what you prefer. I think for mobile, maybe it's better to have the table in a little bit more of a smaller kind of like version. So maybe 5 rows might work best. So this is essentially how you create a table. Of course, you can continue and customizing it, whether you would like to sort by all columns or by just one, etc. But since we're kind of like pressed on time today as well, and it might be a bit too much information, I will let you explore by yourself. As with the sports visualization that Joseph made just a couple of seconds ago, this will also be available for you to just duplicate and edit and see what kind of like settings we've done, what else you can do, or just literally kind of like have this as your own blueprint in your projects page. To finish off with some interesting Olympic visualizations that are again like very beginner friendly and super easy to make. I have here 2 countdowns. We have a countdown template, and this is probably within the top 3 most easiest templates to get started with in Flourish. Simply because this template doesn't even have a data tab. What you need to do is you literally need to put the end date or the deadline up until we're kind of like building anticipation for, and that's done, with the option that, of course, you can also add images, as we've done here for the Olympics and for the Euro. And this is such a great way to kind of like engage your audience if you're writing an article about this, or even if you're kind of like a sports organization, for example, you can put these countdowns on your website, and they can be applied literally everywhere. And if you would like to kind of like dive deep into the data behind the Olympics and every single event, I think Flourish has you covered in any case. So for example, whether you would like to visualize the specific 100 men's 100 meters event and the reaction time and notes with a table that basically provides visual clues on who won the gold, silver, bronze medals, etc. Or you would like to dive even deeper and kind of provide a historical overview. For example, in this case, comparing the 100 meters world record versus the Olympic finals and how many people actually beat the record during the Olympics. Flourish has you covered. So again, you can always kind of browse our blogs, see what we have created, and take inspiration from there. But actually, I think for those of you who joined today's session, we made it hopefully even easier for you. So very quickly, we're gonna go into just a couple of data visualization ideas here. Hopefully, this is a very handy slide for all of you, especially those looking for inspiration. For the Euros, you kind of like saw most of those examples earlier in Joseph's section, but also in case you're looking to visualize something even, like more interesting or further kind of like, more engaging, you can, for example, create a Sankey that showcases like which team won which year. This is for the World Cup, but you can do exactly the same thing for the Euros. But what I would like to emphasize the most here is that again, as Joseph mentioned, Transfermarkt and FBref are fantastic data sources for football data. So in case you are kind of like wondering, oh, but where am I supposed to get the data from to create these visualizations? Obviously, these two sources are the best out there. And when it comes to the Olympics, again, Olympics are very broad topics. There are so many topics that you can visualize and choose from, such as, for example, from anything from engaging your audience with like just testing their knowledge surrounding like historical information or some sort of metadata, to do things like a pictogram to count the different medals, to even trying to spot trends and patterns, such as what we've done here in this example. What this scatter connected dot plot actually visualizes is the ages of the Olympians, of the youngest and the oldest Olympian over time since the beginning, and as well as like little black dot to show the average ages of each players over time. And if you add this to a story, basically you can see here that we've added annotations as well. And in this way, you can add your little kind of create your just a small data story. And talking about annotations, just to kind of finish off today's session with some quick ways to improve your charts. This is actually a just generic data visualization best practices from Joseph. So you can apply this not only to your sports data visualizations, but of course to anything else that you're creating.
Okay, so we've got this chart. And this chart wouldn't be that interesting without these annotations because it's quite hard to work out what's going on. If you're in the story player, it's very simple to add annotations. We just go to this pen. And you can see that we've got these annotations that I've added earlier here. To add a new one, I can just go to my chart, click on a point. So maybe I want to add something here. I can move the annotation around, and then I can write some text. You can also change the marker type, the connection type, and then the color and the text size. And these will move around on mobile, so they're always going to look good and they're always going to have lots of space. Next, there is another type of annotation, which you can actually do on the main visualization page. So you can see here, we've got the annotations tab. And then I've added this little line highlight here. And you don't need to remember this syntax. You just need to remember that it's here because it actually says it just above the box. And there's even a little question mark, which explains a little bit more. What we've got is 15 goals, which is the text written here, a couple of colons, and then it's written at 15. So this means because it's a highlight on the y-axis, it's going to go across 15 on the y-axis. We've also got a range, which is this big grey box. This is very similar. The text is over 20. Then we've got 20 to 40, and this is the range that it's appearing on the y-axis. You can change the area here. So I could, for example, have this red. You could change the opacity and the texture, and then you've got options for where the labels go. Now, finally, if we put these together, you can see this was created for the start of last season. We've got the axis annotations in the range, and I've also added this little annotation here where people were saying Harry Kane was a one-season wonder. And this is pointed to, I think, about 2015 when he got his first season with over 20 goals at Tottenham. So I'd really recommend you use annotations. They work really well with sports templates. Great. Back to you, Simona.
Okay. So for the last tip of the day, we're actually gonna focus very quickly on something that you can create really easily with Flourish. And those are kind of like legend alternatives. Obviously, for Joseph already kind of like showed a couple, such as annotations. They can very quickly and very easily be legend alternatives to kind of provide visual clues and more information on what are you actually trying to visualize and trying to kind of communicate with your data and with your visualization. But just a very handy tip that in some cases you might not even need a legend at all. And if that's the case, you can kind of create this, just add basically legend colors in your header. This is exactly what we've done here. So these are our like two most important tennis players from this visualization because they've scored they won the most games in 2023 in the last Wimbledon championship, and they've also scored the most ATP points. So, for example, here you can see that instead of having some sort of a legend, you can literally use the header to create this. And the best part of this is that this is a Flourish setting. This happens within the click of a button. But you can find how to do this in our blog post. We are really passionate about when and how to use traditional chart legends. So we wrote a whole blog post about it, so you can check it out. And one more thing that I wanted to kind of bring your attention to, just in case you might struggle with something or you're not necessarily certain how it works, within our help docs and within our help center, there are videos available as well. So you can just watch these. And in this case, you can see exactly the same what Joseph visualized a couple of seconds ago on how to add annotations and axis highlights. So highly recommend. And before I move to the last questions of the day, I just wanted to showcase all of our sports resources as well. Apart from the Olympics and the football tournament blog, which you already heard like 10 times, we also have another blog post about football that focuses on Premier League and league football in general. So this is also another stunning blog written by Joseph. And since Wimbledon is also approaching, in case you're interested and you want to kind of like start preparing early, we also have 8 charts that are dedicated to the Wimbledon Championship. So just a very quick and interesting fact that we launched literally a few days ago is that for those who belong to a Flourish company, you can now create company-wide shared folders. So for example, as Joseph and I are, for example, part of the same company, we can create a shared folder and put all mine and his visualizations theirs in preparation for today's webinar, for example. So this is really handy for everybody who belongs to a team. And for those of you who are on our free plan, there is something new for you as well. And for all users essentially, that's that you can now also create nested folders. As you can see here on the GIF, you can have like a main folder analytics, and then you can have smaller folders. So this is really handy and a very kind of like needed feature for you to stay organized. And yeah. And just an announcement 2 minutes before our kind of like dedicated time for today's webinar. I just want to mention that we're going to take a little bit of a break in the summer from webinars, and we'll be back in September. So just in case you don't hear from us in the summer, don't worry, we'll be back. But actually, if you need us in between, you can always email us for any support questions here or for any like webinar specific questions. We have this email as well. I hope everybody found the session super helpful. And thank you so much, and see you all back in September.